What can ordinary Mississippi citizens do to save millions of lives? Everything. Find out how and why it's important with Ann Reed and her special guest.
Today we have with us Tiffany Vonhiltgen, and Tiffany has just become a great friend of mine. We met initially, actually I was at a filming where you were telling your testimony, and just a testimony of some of the things that some of the decisions that you made in your life, and where that has taken you, and how God has delivered you and brought you out. And part of that testimony, you just quickly mentioned that you had an abortion. And that led us into, you ended up coming to our post-abortion Bible studies, and we have become fast friends. And one of the things that has struck me about you, among many other things, is your transparency, just being very honest about where you have been, and as a result of that, God gets the glory. So I just want you to kind of start wherever you want to start, and just kind of tell us some of your story, and then we'll go into specifically some of the area with the post-abortion healing that you've received.
I was very, very young when I decided that I would become sexually active, and my parents did not know this, and they were very, very displeased when they found out, my mother especially. I told her that she'd found out I was pregnant, and this was going into my senior year, and I was very upset with her. I was very upset with the community. I was very upset with myself that I always lived such a fake life. I felt like I lived one life at home, and then I lived one life in front of the church. So it's almost like a chameleon style lifestyle. And I found myself, just battling. I was not happy with myself at all, and I was with this guy who was much older than I. And when I found out I was pregnant, my mom and dad were just devastated. So actually, I didn't have anywhere to turn, and my mom we just thought, you know what, let's just get rid of this child. I mean, it was almost like it was a hindrance to me. So I went into this clinic, and I did this, and I struggled with this for many, many years. It was something that 18 years later, I was still just, I was battling. I was just so upset with myself. So I turned into many things. I turned into the world to feel me. After I did this, I was into drugs. I got into alcohol. I was very promiscuous in my lifestyle with men, and I was miserable. I was miserable. I looked at, and every time I would say, okay, God, please forgive me for this, Satan would bring it right back up and go, God can't forgive you for that. That's too bad. It's just too bad. God can never forgive you. So I went one day and I just said, you know what, God, I wanted this to be over. I want it to be over, but I was just running from myself, and I could never get away from it. I had moved to Vancouver, Canada, where I had met and married a man that was from there, and I had 3 children. God had blessed me with 3 beautiful children, and we were living there. I still was just living in a turmoil. It was this tumultuous relationship with this man that I had married. My children were suffering because of it, and we were just not living and happy at all. It had got to the point where we were being abusive towards one another, and he especially towards me. He was an alcoholic as well. And the courts had said, look, you haven't got to get away from this man. He's killing you and your children slowly. So I didn't listen to the courts. I let him move back into our house, and my children. I told a best friend of mine who was very, very Christian. I said, if you know that this is something's gonna happen to these children, I said, please tell me. I was like, don't let me be around this man. So I was very scared. And she came to the house one day, and she knew that he was there living with me, and she called social services, and they got my children for 3 days. And it was just terrible. It was terrible losing your children. It's just a horrible, horrible thing. And I think that was I was like, God, you have carried me through this. And looking back, I had lost one child because of ignorance, because I was so naive, and I was scared what the community would think. I was scared what my mom and dad would think. But now I'm going to risk losing the children that I've already had. So it was like going through all this over again. And I was like, I've got to get myself together. And so the court said, we'll give you these children back, but you have to move, and you have to get your life started over. And that was the rock bottom. And it was like I was at rock bottom in my life. I had lost my other 3 children. I was not living at all like I wanted to live. And so I finally came back here, and like you said, I just started putting the pieces back together. But I only did that with God. It was only God that did that. And I tell people today, it was without His grace and His love and His forgiveness of everything I've done in my life. But it started all, I think, when I had this abortion. It was the root of all evil, because I was killing myself from what I did. And so it took losing the 3 children God had He had been so gracious to give me in order to get that back. And so I said, I've lost everything to get everything back. I've lost it all to get back something, and that's my salvation with the Lord Jesus Christ, and started a new life. and I'm just so happy. I'm thankful for that.
At what point in time did you start seeing how those things were interconnected? I mean, when you were in the middle of that marriage and all that, what you just described as being very tumultuous, at what point in time did you start seeing the connectedness to that abortion that took place years before that?
I think it always was in the back of my mind. I knew that when I got married, I was very codependent. I probably pushed my husband away and many times because I was so, I needed to be with him all the time. It was the neediness, it was the nightmares. I could never sleep at night. I never had gotten a good night's sleep, but it slowly started coming to me. I'd see something on abortion on the TV, I'd hear something on the radio, and then it would be in my thoughts. You know, it would always be pulled back up, and I thought, this is connected somehow. I know it is because I didn't have an inner peace. I was never at peace with myself. I hated myself. I hated myself for what I had done, but not only did I hate myself for that, I hated myself on an everyday living. I couldn't live, it's like I couldn't live with myself. So I would have temporary pleasures. I would look to drugs, I would look to alcohol, I would look to these sexual relationships before I was married, and then with even my husband. It was temporary things to fix me. And then they were awful. I mean, I remember many nights, I would just stay and I was just high on cocaine, just thinking that made me feel better. But it was horrible. The next day it was so wretched because I was really going, this isn't fixing this. And so I knew that this is when that's the thoughts that would come to my mind. It was like, you know, I hate myself because I've done this. And so it always pointed back to the abortion. Everything, it affected every decision of everything I ever made in my life. And I knew it was the source of something. And I believed that that was it. And it always just came back to my mind.
How many years was that? How long of a period of time was that from the abortion until the time where you really came to a place of healing specifically connected to the abortion?
It was 18 years. 18 years, Ann. I suffered.
And during that time, were you crying out to God any of that time at all?
You know what? I was raised in church, and I was, like I said, I was upset with the church community because I was raised in a church I felt like that always portrayed they were so perfect, but they weren't perfect. And you know, that's finally when I was 24 years old, I heard a lady that told her testimony, and you said earlier in this that you appreciated always my transparency. So I feel like I went to church all my life, but I never saw someone who truly was real in church until I was 24 years old, and it was her power of her testimony. I would never search him. I would just pray. Like, I knew that I knew God, and I knew that I had a relationship, but I never had a personal relationship with Him. I would say, God, I love you, and please help me. But I remember going one day. I was in Vancouver, and this was during the time that I was married, and I was walking along Boundary Bay, and it was in the middle of nowhere, and God was searching for me because I was walking. There was absolutely nothing there, and I looked down on the ground, and there was a sheet of paper, and it was a Bible verse, and it said, "All we like sheep have gone astray." And it's just like that came back to me 100 times now because it was like God knew I was that lost sheep. You know, the parable of the 100 sheep. I mean, one can be lost, and God will wait for that one. And so I always felt like I was that one lost sheep. He was waiting on me. So, you know, your answer to your question is no, I never sought God out until I had to lose everything. And when I say lose everything, it was losing my 3 children for 3 days to foster care that finally got my attention. And God used that to bring back healing in my life, and so that was just the start of it. So God's carried me now through this. I've come back home. I've gotten a job. I've gotten a car. I had no clothes when I came here. My children are now doing great. I'm doing my master's and to be a counselor myself. And God's so good. I mean, I just look at Him and I go, "Am I worthy? How am I worthy?" But I am, Ann. And through that Bible study, that's what God has shown me is that, you know what? No matter what sin it is, you are worthy because we're His child, and He has sacrificed. He sacrificed His own Son for us to have that freedom. And so that was the beauty of this, is that it was the Passover, the day of Passover. It was 4 days before Easter, and you remember that you were there. But I shared this with 2 other ladies who mean so much to me as well, and they got to see that I finally surrendered this to Christ. And I said, you know what, God, this is everything. This has been the source of everything, of how I've beat myself up, and I've been so abusive in every area of my life. But I'm going to give this to you. And so I surrendered it at the foot of the cross to Jesus that day, and I've had such healing in that. And I believe that any viewer who wants to see this, you know, we say, oh, this is an abortion, I've never done that. But, you know, there's people who have done every kind of sin.
That's right.
And that there are sins. I'm sure there's people out there today who go, I've done this, and I can't. No, you can. You can do anything that you've done. God can forgive you. So, you know, when we're struggling with this, when people view us and they want to be judgmental, you know, I think we all need to remember that God doesn't, you know, view sin. Now, I think what I did was very bad, but, you know, I just ask the community would be very remorseful and understanding of us because we have all sinned. And God did forgive me for that. And this is now a purpose in my life, that I want to fight for life. So it's very, very important, and I'm very passionate about people wanting to help others and wanting to vote for this, because it's so important for me to understand that life is what God created, and that's not our right to take that away.
That's right. And what Tiffany's actually talking about when she says vote for this is we're talking about Amendment 26 that will be on the ballot in November. And you'll see perhaps bumper stickers, the Vote for Life, Yes on 26 bumper stickers. There are t-shirts that are out, there are yard signs that are out, and flyers. And if you have not become familiar with what this amendment is, and you are in the state of Mississippi, I'm just going to read to you basically, just summarize to you basically what this amendment is that will be on the ballot in November. Initiative 26 would amend the Mississippi Constitution to define the word person or persons, as those terms are used in Article 3 of the state constitution, to include every human being from the moment of fertilization, cloning, or the functional equivalent thereof. And something that I want to make sure and bring out about this is that this was a citizen initiative, that this is not something that is being done in the legislature. To a certain degree it is, because it wouldn't be on the ballot if it didn't at least go through the legislature. But this started through just Mississippi citizens taking petitions and having them signed. We received over 100,000 signatures on this petition to have this amendment placed on the ballot. So this is a huge just reflection of what we, the people in the state of Mississippi stand for. So I would encourage you, if you have not familiarized yourself yet with this amendment, just to go to this website. It's yeson26.net, yeson26.net. And we also have, Tiffany is available, I'm available, we have other women who have gone through post-abortion healing who can come to your church, and we can do exactly what Tiffany has just described. We can come and just be offerings, basically, in that we will just openly, transparently share what we've done, what we've experienced, and let God do that healing as a result.
And Ann, you know, what's so important to me about this this amendment is that, you know, back when I was facing this abortion, I was struggling so bad because I was so clueless, and I didn't know what I wanted to do. But I wish that somebody could have stopped me. I wish there was something that would have, if this would have been in place, it would have been great, because it wouldn't have even been an option for me. I mean, I would have been through 18 years of, you know, there were so many other choices. I could have had that baby and given that baby a wonderful, beautiful life. There's so many families who want to adopt. There's so many families who are struggling to have babies. And you know what? If I hadn't been so selfish, it was a very, very selfish act. And you know what? There were so many other choices. I think it's so easy for a girl just to go without, I didn't even have any counseling that was given to me before. It was just a decision. It was made in 5 minutes, and I was at the clinic within 3 days. So I would just pray. I'm like, there's so many girls who could be healed from all this abuse and what they do to themselves if this had been in place. So I strongly urge voters to vote for this. I really do.
Yes,
So.
well, thank you so much, Tiffany,
Thank
just
you.
for, again, being very transparent and open, and just so much appreciate you and who you are, and who you have become and who you are becoming, and just being able to be alongside you and watch God transform your heart.
Thank you.
Personhood Mississippi started out as a citizen initiative, and it continues to be. This weighty responsibility lies flatly in the hands of we the people, the Mississippi voters. Mississippi voters will have the chance to say yes on Amendment 26 November 8, 2011 at the ballot box. Check out www.yeson26.net for more information. If you are in Mississippi and would like to provide education to a church group through a Festival for Life meeting or a series of meetings, contact Joseph Parker, Pastor and Outreach Director at American Family Association, by calling 662-844-8888, extension 381. If you would like to invite one of the women you've seen or heard about on this video to share at a women's meeting or church service, please call Ann Reed at 662-346-3772.